Alright guys, this is going to be a pretty short video lecture. We've already talked about invasive species and the different types of species we can have in an ecosystem. We'll start by comparing and contrasting native and invasive species. So just a reminder, native species are groups of plants, animals, or other living things that normally live and thrive in a particular ecosystem. That means that native species are living inside their range. Range is our fancy science word for saying area where they live. For example, the purple pitcher plant, which I love so much, its range or where it can typically be found is anywhere from the very bottom of Florida all the way up into Canada, but only on the east coast of the United States, nowhere else. So that would be a native species. If I found it anywhere else, it wouldn't be native. We would call it something else, which we'll learn about in just a second. All of the species that you see on the screen are native to North America. That means they have both natural predators and prey. They fit very well into our food chains or food webs. That means that their populations are limited or in check based on the availability of prey, so how much food there is to eat, as well as the number of predators or how many things are eating it. Some examples of these species are the eastern white pine, the white-tailed deer, and the cardinal. So if we're looking right here, we've got our white-tailed deer, which many of you I know hunt and use for meat, like venison. The cardinal, this is a male cardinal right here. Fun fact about cardinals, they're pretty territorial. They've been known to attack their reflection because they think it's another male bird. Sometimes that even happens in like your car window or your car mirrors, like your side mirrors. So sometimes you have to cover them up in the summer so that the cardinals don't attack it, as well as the eastern white pine tree right here in the bottom corner of the screen. We also know that species can be introduced. So this is when an organism that is not native, so it doesn't normally belong to a place or area, where it has been accidentally or deliberately transported by human activities. For example, the cow and the apple tree were brought here as food supplies. Earthworms were probably brought here too accidentally in the 1600s. So sometimes humans bring plants over because they want to eat them, they want to beautify the place, they want a touch of home, they think they're cool. There are many, many reasons. We have a lot of exotic pets. Sometimes people will buy them and enjoy their company for a little bit, realize that they're pretty hard to take care of, and then they'll end up putting them back into the ecosystem, which is actually how a lot of our invasive species start out. So we don't suggest, or we don't like dumping pets into the wild because you think they can live there, like snakes, like the I forget what they're called. Pythons, there it is, are found in the Florida Everglades now, so the swamps of Florida, when they weren't native, because people would put their pythons there when they no longer wanted to take care of them. Here's those examples of our intentionally introduced species, the apple tree, which are very yummy, and a cow who looks as happy as can be. All right, our last example of species are invasive species. This is when an organism that is not indigenous or not native to a particular ecosystem, they can cause great economic and environmental harm to the new area. It often costs a lot of money to try and get them eradicated or to take them out of the area. Not only that, they can be really harmful to things like crops or pets or humans even. Not only that, but they wreak havoc on the ecosystem itself. Oftentimes these introduced organisms don't have natural predators, therefore their populations explode and they cause a lot of damage. They can eat a lot of their prey, meaning that our native species don't have anything to eat because of them, or they can block the sunlight from other plants. It just really depends on what species we're talking about. These were introduced either accidentally or deliberately. So the difference between an introduced species and an invasive species, introduced species don't usually cause harm. So, I mean, cows are debatably harmful with their methane releasing farts and the way that we do our meat production nowadays, but they don't really cause a ton of harm. Like I said, they're very cute. They're not really in an ecosystem, but when they do cause harm, that's when we label them as invasive. Again, it can be economic or environmental. Some examples are the hemlock woolly attigan, the princess tree, and kudzu, which we've talked about before. Here is the princess tree right here with its beautiful purple flowers. This is the hemlock woolly attigan. It's a beetle species. This is a microscopic view of it. If you were to find it on a tree, it looks more something like this. It is kind of, it's a blight, it's a pest, so it eats the tree. And then this is kudzu, the vines right here covering the native species of trees. That's not good because then the native species can't get the light they need. And this is it. Tomorrow, while we're here, I may as well introduce you. We are going to be doing an activity on invasive species. So you're going to pick a couple invasive species. I'll put a list up there for you on Canvas. Let's go back. So you're going to be looking into 3 of the invasive species that we actually have in North Carolina. You're going to be researching them, so you're going to use this data sheet, and you're going to choose 3 of the invasive species from the list. You're going to name the species. You're going to tell me their normal range or where they came from. You're going to tell me how they think, because we don't always know how they were spread, but you're going to tell me how you think they were or how scientists think they are. And now you're going to tell me their full range or their new area that they're in. And then you're going to tell me the impact. So why is it an issue? You can list a couple of reasons why it's an issue. So for example, if I was doing the fire ant, which we know is an invasive species, I would list fire ant right here, species number 1. I would say the home range, which is generally in Argentina, is where they came from. They don't really know why they were transported or how they got there. They assume that maybe they came on goods and ships, and then they got to Mobile, Alabama. They were spread there. That's where it began in the United States. Their full range now, they are working their way up the East Coast and towards Texas. So they are almost to Texas now, as well as up to the East Coast. They're spreading into the top of North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, and they keep spreading even more. The impacts, they are harmful to the native ant species, but not only that, they're harmful to us. We spend a lot of money. If you have a yard that you would like to play in without getting bit by fire ants, you spend a lot of money trying to kill the ants or eradicate the, what are they called? The ant hills, the colonies of ants. Okay guys, that is what you're doing tomorrow if you're already watching this video, or if you're watching this video on Thursday, this is what you're doing today. Have a great day, guys.